Hey, welcome. So, you're thinking about building a career in one of the hottest roles in tech? Perfect. You are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to lay out the entire 2025 roadmap for becoming a DevOps engineer, step by step. But before we dive in, let me ask you something. When you think about the highest paying, most in demand jobs in the tech industry right now, what's the first role that pops into your head? Yep, you guessed it, DevOps. Now, I know it's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but what does it really mean? And more importantly, how do you actually get into this field? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down today. So, here's our game plan. We'll start with the what and why of DevOps. Then, we'll get into the right mindset for the job. After that, it's the full roadmap, foundational skills, and advanced tools. And we'll wrap up by looking at your personal path to get started. Sound good? Let's go. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, DevOps, the what and the why. So, what is a DevOps engineer even doing all day? What's their core mission? Think of DevOps as a bridge. Seriously, for the longest time you had two separate islands, the developers, the dev team, who write the code, and the operations, the ops team, who make sure that code runs smoothly on servers. DevOps builds a bridge between them, and the whole point of that bridge is to get software built, tested, and out to users way faster and with fewer headaches. The secret sauce? Automation. And this really gets to the heart of the difference. A software engineer, they're busy building the car, designing the engine, the seats, the features. But the DevOps engineer, they're building the entire assembly line, the whole factory floor, to make sure that car gets built and delivered flawlessly, over and over again. They own the pipeline. And once you get that distinction, you start to see why this role is so different. It's not just about the tools you use, it's about how you think. Which brings us perfectly to our next section, the essential DevOps mindset. It's a whole different way of looking at problems. Okay, so if you want to succeed in DevOps, it really comes down to these four things. First, you've got to be obsessed with automation. If you have to do something twice, you automate it, period. Second, you need a healthy sense of risk awareness. Always ask what's the worst that can happen and then build things to prevent it. Third is systems thinking. You have to see the big picture, how one tiny change over here can cause a massive problem over there. And last but not least, continuous learning. The tech changes so fast in the space, you have to love learning new stuff. All right, enough with the theory. Let's get to the good stuff, the actual roadmap. We're going to start with the absolute basics, the foundational skills you just can't skip. Look, there are two things that are completely non-negotiable. Step 1, you need to learn a programming language. Something versatile like Python or Go is perfect because you're going to be writing a lot of scripts to automate things. Step 2, you have to master Linux and the terminal. I'm serious. This is the office, the workshop, the whole 9 yards for DevOps engineer. And if you're wondering why Linux is so important, just look at this number, 96.3%. That's how many of the world's top 1 million servers run on something like Linux. So yeah, the command line isn't just some cool retro tool. It's the language of the internet. You have to speak it fluently. It's not optional. Okay, so once you've got your programming language and your Linux skills down, it's time to level up. Let's talk about building out your advanced automation toolkit. This next part is where it all starts to connect. We're going to cover version control, then networking, then this really cool thing called containerization. From there, we'll talk about the cloud and something called infrastructure as code. And finally, we'll tie it all together with CI/CD. So, step 3 is version control. This is basically the save button for an entire team's project. Using a tool like Git, usually on a platform like GitHub, everyone can work on the same code at the same time without messing up each other's work. It tracks every single change so you can always go back if something breaks. It's an absolute must. All right, next up is a real game changer, containerization. You know that classic developer problem, right? Well, it works on my machine. Docker and other container tools were invented to kill that problem forever. You basically package up your application with everything it needs to run, all the libraries, all the settings, into a neat little box called a container. And that container will run exactly the same way, everywhere. Okay, so containers are amazing, but what happens when your app isn't just one container? What if it's hundreds or even thousands of them, all talking to each other? How in the world do you manage all that chaos? Well, that's where container orchestration comes in. And really, when we talk about orchestration, we're talking about Kubernetes. It's the conductor of the orchestra. It tells all those containers where to go, how many of them to run, and what to do if one of them fails. It's what makes massive, modern applications possible. So, where does all this stuff actually live? In the cloud, of course. We're talking about platforms like AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud. But here's the DevOps twist. You don't click around in a web browser to set up your servers. No way. You write code to do it. That's called infrastructure as code, or IAC. Using a tool like Terraform, you define your entire setup in a file, and it builds it for you, perfectly, every single time. It's that automation mindset again. And finally, we get to the grand finale, CI/CD. This stands for Continuous Integration and Continuous Delivery. This is the assembly line we talked about earlier. It's the fully automated process that grabs the latest code from a developer, automatically runs a bunch of tests on it, and if everything looks good, it deploys it out to your users. All of this happens in minutes, with zero human button pushing. This is where tools like Jenkins or GitHub Actions shine. So there you have it. That's the roadmap, from Linux all the way to a fully automated CI/CD pipeline. Now let's talk about you. How do you actually get started on this path? And here's the most important thing I want you to take away. Anyone with the right skills can become a DevOps engineer. It doesn't matter what your job title was before. It's not about your background, it's about your drive to learn this stuff. Now, sure, if you're coming from a background as a systems engineer or a backend dev or an infrastructure engineer, you might have a bit of a head start. The transition can feel a little more natural. But honestly, the door is wide open for anyone. If you're just an aspiring engineer who gets excited about making things more efficient and automating everything in sight, then this is absolutely a career you can build for yourself. So you've got the map. We've covered the mindset, the foundational skills, and the advanced tools. The path to becoming a DevOps engineer is laid out right in front of you. The only question left is, where are you going to start?